Hello world and welcome back to Blood Magic in Minecraft 1.16 and 1.12.2. As you can see, we're not in the same world as previous tutorials, as that's because this world is actually in 1.12.2. But don't worry, nothing has changed. I just didn't want to switch back and forth for this episode, as we are going to be covering sigils today. Every single sigil that is in the mod pack, both for 1.16 and 1.12. There is a massive wall of things we have to go through, so let's get into it. Before we start, I would like to say that if this tutorial helps you in any way, shape or form, please give me a like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and stay tuned if you hit the bell for more tutorials later to come. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Mondays3, as well as have a Discord and a Twitter. All will be linked down in the description. Today first, before we go on to sigils, we're going to be moving to the tier 5 altar very briefly, which is only currently in 1.12.2. You can build the tier 5 altar in 1.16, however there is no content currently implemented into the version, so there's actually no point in building it, besides maybe having more space in your blood altar if you want to do anything, you know. But before we actually go into the tier 5 altar, I just want to sort of correct myself from the previous episode. So in the previous tutorial I talked about getting these blood shards in order to get these bloodstone tiles, to get the bloodstone brick, in order to make the tier 4 altar, as that requires the bloodstone brick. Now I said you have to use the alchemical reaction chamber in order to actually create the blood shards, which is still true for 1.16, but in 1.12 that machine doesn't actually exist. So to get the weak blood shards in 1.12.2, you actually need to do it a little bit of a different way, and it involves killing mobs that have a weakness effect applied on them. Now I tried doing this with a weakness splash potion on a zombie and then killing them with the diamond sword, but that unfortunately didn't end up working. In this version you have to use some new, I guess more like old, tools, and they're called the bound tools. You got the bound blade specifically to get these blood shards, but you also have the bound pickaxe and the bound axe. We're going to be covering all of them here. First we have the bound pickaxe, which is obviously done in the arcane ash, and we showed how to make the binding reagent last time, but just as a quick refresher, it's done like this. You must have at least a common Tartaric Gem in the Hellfire Forge to make the binding reagent in this. Then you also need a diamond sword, and this will give you the bound blade. So the way the bound blade works is all based on your blood orb. So if I quickly get a blood orb here, I'll just get the weak one for now. You'll see I've actually got loads of life points right here, and you'll see why very shortly. But the bound blade works as like this. If you shift right click with it, it turns into the sword. And what it's going to do is it's going to slowly take down this life essence that is in your inventory. You see it's slowly ticking down. Every couple of ticks I think it's every 5 seconds, you see it takes down 20 life essence. So if we go in here now and we'll spawn a zombie. There's the magician's blood orb. I wondered where I put that. We're still in peaceful mode. So if I place that in here now and I will attack this guy, there's a chance it will drop the blood shard. Now this inferior essence, this is from a different mod, so ignore that. But if we keep killing until we get one. There we go. Finally, we managed to get one. Took me a bit of time with that one. Now, something else I should say with the way that this sword actually works. Oh, there you go. You see we've got a second one there. Something else to say about the bound blade is that each additional hit with the bound blade is actually going to tick down your life essence even further. And something you have to worry about is that if you run out of life points, it's going to actually start taking away your armor, your actual health itself. Now we're in creative mode, so we don't actually have to worry about that right now. So I'm going to deactivate this so it actually stops everything. So next we have the bound pickaxe. Now the bound pickaxe is pretty much made the exact same way as the bound blade, except that it uses a diamond pickaxe to be created. So if we get one of these here, again, it's going to be in its deactivated state, and you need to shift right click in order to activate it. Now the way this works is it's again going to tick down your life essence ever so slowly. Every 5 seconds or so it's going to take down another 20 life points, as you can see there. But the way it works is that as well as giving us a bit of the same, I think it's the same speed rate as a regular diamond pickaxe, but it essentially is an infinite durability pickaxe, as what you can do is every time it ticks down the little bit of durability, as it would if with a regular diamond pickaxe, or any pickaxe for that matter, then it will take a chunk of your life points, roughly around 100. But also it has a second ability. Now I'm not sure if this will work on grass, but on stone, if you right click with the bound blade, you hear that explosion? It didn't actually happen, but it will use 10k, 10,000 life points to clear a very large area of land. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a large area full of stone. It might work on this over here, though. No, it appears that it doesn't work. What if we charge it up? There we go. Is it firing? No. Yeah, I think it only works on stone, but there you go. It takes what it looks like to be maybe a 5x5 chunk. That is not too bad then, but it costs 10k obviously. There you go. Even more. It might be a blocks amount maybe. But that's essentially how the bound pickaxe works. So let's deactivate this. And then lastly is the bound axe. Now this can act exactly the same way as the bound pickaxe with all its traits. You activate it, will start ticking down your durability. It also has the durability with using your life points instead of the durability, but also it has the right click ability where it can take a large amount of wood out at once, just as you see here. But let's deactivate that. And the last thing I wanted to show is, while we're here, is that in 1.12.2, last time we looked at getting the greater Tartaric Gem. In 1.12.2 you can also get the Grand Tartaric Gem, which is just a greater Tartaric Gem and a Nether Star. It's a big old increase. Now the Grand Tartaric Gem can hold 16,384 Demon Will, and that is the largest size you can get. So if you actually need that much will, I have no idea what you're doing, but congrats to you. And besides that, we've also got the shard here in order to make our tiles, then our lovely bricks to put on our tier 4 altar. But here is the tier 5 altar. Now the tier 5 altar, that requires obviously a hell of a lot more runes, but this time 4 beacons. But as you can see, the beacons don't actually need to be activated, and you don't need to have like large amounts of iron underneath it. And if you go over here, you can see in the top left hand corner there, it does say that this is a full tier item, full 5 tier blood altar. Now as usual, we'll go over the things that you can get with a tier 5 altar. You can get the last arch, the last blood orb, which is the archmage blood orb. It requires a Nether Star, similar to how the Grand Tartaric Gem over there requires a Nether Star, and this will give you the archmage blood orb, and it will cost 80,000 LP to actually get this craft to fully complete, and it holds 10 million life points in total. So that's what I've been doing here, trying to fill it up as much as possible. Now as you can see here, I've got the creative sacrificial dagger. That's only in 1.12 as well, but if you shift right click on this, it will instantly fill it no matter what. So there you go, there's 184,209 life in there again. So if I pick this up, you'll see that I have loads and loads of essence. But anyway, now's the time that everyone's been waiting for. We are going to clear this inventory now, and also we're going to get rid of all these slimes, and we're going to go through every single sigil that is in Blood Magic. Now we're going to go through all the different sigils that are in both versions first. Some of them have very slightly changed recipes, but besides that, there's nothing. It's mostly just the amount of will requirement. But anyway, we're going to go through, demonstrate each one, how they're made, how each reagent's going to be made, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited. But anyway, first is the divination sigil. Now we did actually cover this in the very first tutorial for Blood Magic. This is in both 1.16 and 1.12, requires a blank slate, which is why we need the tier 1 altar at a minimum, and just some redstone. There is no change in the recipe between versions, and as we showed over here, it will tell you, if I actually get up there, it will tell you the tier of your altar, as well as the amount of blood inside it, and then if you right click in the air, it will tell you how many life points you have stored within your blood orbs. We've covered that, we've used that in both tutorials, we know how this works, but just as a refresher for anyone who's just watching here, this is how this one is. Next, we have the Water Sigil, made again in the Arcane Ash. This has a blank slate and also the water reagent. Blank slate means we need the tier 1 altar. All of this section is going to require just a blank slate here. And now the water reagent is made inside the Hellfire Forge, and it requires 1 sugar and 2 water. The only difference between 1.16 and 1.12 is the amount of will. In 1.16 you must have at least the petty Tartaric Gem and up, but in 1.12 you can make it with just the raw will. Now the way that the water sigil works is very, very simple. You right click in the world, it creates a source block. Very, very simple stuff. It basically just, gets rid of the need to have buckets of water, It's a very simple stuff, and all of them really are. Next we have the lava sigil. Pretty much the exact opposite, but also sort of the same as the water sigil. This is made again with the blank slate in the Arcane Ash, and requires the lava reagent, and it requires 1 bucket of lava, 1 redstone, 1 cobblestone, and now this is where the difference is for the lava sigil. In 1.16 it only requires 1 block of coal, and you must have at least a petty Tartaric Gem up. But in 1.12.2 it requires 8 blocks of coal, as you can see in here. Now if I actually had some will, I would be able to show you this craft working in 1.12, but I don't on me right now. But that's essentially that. Also, it can be done with just raw will, so it's very, very, very cheap. Now, as I said, this is pretty much the exact same. So if we plot this over here, it'll place a lava source into the world. Very, very simple stuff. And that already is all the things that you can make at tier 1 in both versions of the game. Both versions. But we're going to be moving on here now to the tier 2 altar requirements, so which means you need the reinforced slate for all of these few sigils here. The first sigil is the Green Grove sigil, crafted with the reinforced slate, of course, and this time it's going to need the Green Grove reagent. This reagent is made with 2 oak saplings, or any saplings for that matter. It could be 2 jungle, could be 2 pine, it really, really doesn't matter. 1 sugarcane and 1 sugar. Now this, in both versions for 1.16 and 1.12, you need to have the lesser Tartaric Gem and up. And the way that the Green Grove works is it essentially acts as an AoE sort of bone meal effect. So I've quickly just created a farm to demonstrate this. Now the way the Green Grove works is that it increases the speed in an area around you, 6 blocks around you. So if I shift right click to activate it here, it's now going to be ticking away our health. And some facts about this: when activated, the sigil will consume 150 LP, which is obviously what is in your blood orb, every 5 seconds. So you got to make sure that you actually remember to turn this off, otherwise you could end up killing yourself in the long run, and then you could also right click on a specific plant and it'll give it a bone meal effect. As you can see, the tick rate is being increased and it's quickly growing all of these lovely bits of wheat now. But let's turn that off so that doesn't end up killing us, Next on, moving on, we have the Sigil of the Fast Miner. Now, you can probably guess what this one's going to actually be. Requires, again, the reinforced slate, and this time mining reagents. And the mining reagent requires the basic iron tools. So pickaxe, axe, and shovel, as well as 1 gunpowder. This requires a lesser gem and up in the Hellfire Forge, and this will give us the Sigil of Fast Miner. Now, as you can probably guess, if you shift right click with this on, it's actually going to increase your mining speed. Now, I'm in creative mode here, so it's not probably the best thing to actually demonstrate it, but it will give you a 20% increase for both mining and digging. And the Sigil will also consume 100 life points every 10 seconds while it is activated. So again, make sure you have enough essence inside your orbs, and that goes the same for all of these. Some of them it's going to be a tick rate, sometimes it's going to be every use, like the water and lava is every single use. I think, I didn't actually mention, but those both take 100 life points per water and lava source. Alright, moving on. We have the Seer's Sigil. Now, the Seer's Sigil is actually going to be sort of like an upgrade of the Divination Sigil from earlier. So this again requires reinforced slate, sight reagent. Now, the sight reagent actually requires the Divination Sigil, 2 glass and 1 piece of glowstone. Now, this only takes the petty gem and up, so you can actually get this pretty early on from the pack, but you still do need a tier 2 altar as we need the reinforced slate. Now with the Seer's Sigil, again as I said, it's sort of like an upgrade to the Divination Sigil we have here, and it gives us a few extra stats here. So if we look in here now, you can see we've got 3 more icons on the side of our blood altar. Now the first one I believe is the rate of consumption. Actually that's wrong, the bucket with the arrow pointing down, that is the rate of consumption. The top one is I believe the percentage of craft, and then the last one is how much like the charge. Now we talked about in a previous episode how there is like an interval buffer, and the charging rune will give us more of that internal buffer. So when we right click an item on here, we'll instantly take out everything in the charge rune to put it straight into the craft to get things all up in one go. This will show you how much the charge rune actually has stuff in there. And then besides that, when you right click in the air, it doesn't actually do anything. And then also on the incense altar back from the first tutorial, it will give us the exact same items with just saying your tranquility and your percentage bonus. So it only really increases, you know, the blood altar itself. So it's not a major, you don't have to have it. Just if you like seeing these extra stats, then it's probably a good one to get. Next up we have the Void Altar, again requiring a reinforced slate, this time a Void Reagent. Void Reagent is made with an empty bucket, 2 string and 1 gunpowder, and this is the Petty Gem and up, that's the requirement for this. Now the Void Sigil is really one that's meant to be made hand in hand with the Water and Lava Sigil, and what it does is essentially it gets rid of source blocks. So if you right click on a source, as you can see, it just sucks it up. Very, very simple stuff here, and then it goes to the same for the water as well, just like this. Perfect. And then finally for the tier 2 altar in both versions of 1.12 and 1.16, we have the Air Sigil, needing the reinforced slate, Air Reagent, who would have guessed, and this requires 1 ghast tier, 2 feathers, and then it must have a lesser Tartaric Gem or higher in order to create. Now the Air Gem is sort of like your basic flight when it comes to blood magic. So if you right click, you'll see it shoots me in the air, and obviously the more you look up, the higher you go. Now you have to remember I'm in creative now, but this does not stop your fall damage. You will take damage if you keep doing this, but if you spam right click, this is what I'm doing here. You see we're flying around quite a lot, and you can go higher and you can actually go lower, but I wouldn't recommend it as you probably will hurt you just a little bit. But again, this doesn't actually protect you from fall damage, so be very, very careful. Every time you right click, it will use 50 life points, so make sure this is definitely full. Your blood orb is definitely full if you're planning on doing a lot of traversing with this sigil. But next up we have the tier 3 requirement, the tier 3 blood altar requirement. This is for 1.16 and 1.12. This is going to use the imbued slates for the rest of these. Oh wow, it's actually 2 sigils for both versions. Here we have the Sigil of Magnetism. This is going to require the Magnetism Reagent, which is made with 1 string, 2 gold, 1 block of iron, and requires the common Tartaric Gem and higher. You can see we're getting a little bit deeper into the mod now. Now, the Sigil of Magnetism, as you can probably guess, is that when it's activated, it's going to give you a wide area to pick up items. So if we throw down all these previous ones, is that deleting them? That is deleting them. Let's throw them actually out. That's what I wanted. Not that one though. So we have this here. If we shift right click to activate it, you see it sucks it all in. Now this is going to cost 50 LP or life points every 10 seconds while activated, and works within a 5 block radius of you. So you've got 5 blocks that way and you've got 5 blocks that way. So definitely keep this one on you if you're going around mining. And then the last one for tier 3 blood altar, as well as that, it's actually the last sigil that's in 1.16 at all, and that is the Sigil of the Blood Lamp. Again, using the imbued slate, and this time using Blood Lamp Reagent. It requires 1 glowstone, 1 glowstone block, 1 torch and 2 redstone. This also requires the common Tartaric Gem and higher, and this will give you the blood lamp. Now the way the blood lamp works is it's essentially a light source, as you can probably guess. If you right click on the wall, it will place a light source. You can see we've got some particle effects there, and you can see the little outline. Now that's giving us our little bit of light there. It's the same as a regular torch, and this is again going to use our life points, and this takes 10 life points per right click. And also if you right click in the air, it will actually shoot a little light projectile, as you can see, and it will land on a wall. So if you go over there, it will land right here, as you can see, and that's giving us our new light source. That also requires just 10 life points per right click. And there is actually this one sigil. We've got the sigil of the frozen lake in 1.16, but it's not actually added into the game yet. So if we go here, sigil of the frozen, okay, it's not coming up, but I promise you it's here. We just can't, that's why. It's not in 1.12 and we're in a 1.12 world at the moment. So there is the sigil of the frozen lake. It's not yet added into the game or implemented into the game, so you can't actually craft it, but it is very similar, or what I imagine it would be, very similar to a later sigil coming up. So if you're here for 1.16, this is actually going to be the end of the tutorial for you, as every other sigil is just for 1.12.2, and there's quite a few extras here. Some are a little bit strange, some are sort of copying each other, but they're all very useful to have, and again all require a lot of life points inside your blood altars. So first, for 1.12.2 only, this is going to go back to just needing the tier 2 altar, and that is the Sigil of Elasticity. This is crafting with the reinforced slate and elasticity reagent, which only requires 2 slime blocks. Lime blocks? Man, imagine if limes were in the game. 2 slime blocks, 1 leather, 1 string, and this requires a lesser Tartaric Gem and up. So if you get this elasticity here, essentially how it works is it sort of negates fall damage. So if I fly really high and then go to survival mode here, right, so I'm very high up here, so I'm going to have to be very quick. If I now shift right click, it's activated. There you go. I just bounce up. Perfect. So you really want to use the Sigil of Elasticity in 1.12 alongside with the Air Sigil. So if I get the Air Sigil here, if I now fly around with this, I never have to worry about fall damage, as it's just constantly going to help me out. But also remember, don't just always leave it on, as again it will just consume all your life points away. Now I couldn't actually find online where and how much the life points actually get ticked down, but you never want to leave it on. That's pretty much how that works. And next up, this is for, again, the tier 2 altar, the last one in 1.12. This is the Sigil of Winter's Breath. This time it's going to need the Frost reagent, and this is going to be crafted with 1 ice, 2 snowballs, and a redstone, and you must have a lesser Tartaric Gem or higher. Now I need to go back into creative mode here. There you go. If I take this, now the Sigil of Winter's Breath is something a little bit interesting. It essentially changes things into the Frost Walker enchant you can have on your boots. So if I get down some water, we can use our slate of water right here. There you go. If we activate this now, you see I'm over here. If I go start walking forward, it will start freezing things, and as I walk away, they should start melting again. You see it's ticking down over time, so they don't stay frozen. You couldn't use it for some sort of farm, but that's how that works. It's essentially the Frost Walker, an early game Frost Walker if you don't want to do either, you know, the villager trading or just trying out in the enchantment table. Now, again, unfortunately, I couldn't find how much life points this actually takes per activation, but if it's anything like the other ones, it's probably going to be around about 100 LP per 10 seconds or 5 seconds of activation. That's what it seems to be for most other things. But that's going to be that for the tier 2s. Now we have the tier 3 altar. Again, this is going to be for 1.12.2 only, so these few are going to be using the imbued slates. Now the first one is the Sigil of Elemental Affinity, and this requires the Elemental Affinity reagent, surprisingly enough. Now this is going to require the Water Sigil, the Air Sigil, and the Lava Sigil, as well as the 1 Obsidian. And you're going to need a common Tartaric Gem or higher in order to create this. Now you might think, oh yeah, this is just going to be a sigil that has all 3 abilities. it actually isn't. Instead, it's more of a defense type. So when you actually activate it, it will negate full damage, similar to elasticity, except you won't have a bounce, you'll just negate it, Then you'll also have the ability to breathe underwater, as well as having lava and fire immunity. So it's a very good thing to have in the nether. And it will cost 200 life points for every 10 seconds. So if I place down some lava here, you see that's flowing. Obviously, let's go back into survival. That would probably help, wouldn't it? Here we go. We've got burning, definite burning. Put this on, no longer burning. Obviously, this is going to take and severely drain our life essence. So when you're in the nether, I would actually recommend keeping this on if you have something like the Archmage Blood Altar, as I still have a lot of the essence on me. Now, obviously, we can get the good old Void Sigil, and then we can remove those as well. Very good, this Void Sigil. Next up for tier 3, we have the Sigil of Holding. This requires another imbued slate, and the Holding Reagent. This requires a chest, 1 leather and 2 string, and this can actually be crafted with just raw will, as it's a very, very, I would say, early game. If you're going straight with just blood altars and nothing else, it's quite an early game thing. Now, the Sigil of Holding, it's a very, very, very handy sigil, and I wish it comes to 1.16. And as you can see, when I flick onto it, I have 5 new slots over on the right hand side of my bar there. Now, the Sigil of Holding, what it essentially does is that you can have 5 other sigils inside of this one sigil, and you can use all the abilities at once, one at a time, but obviously don't forget that you actually have things on, otherwise you'll start dying very quickly. Now, to open the sigil, the default button is H, but if you're playing in a mod pack, H is probably already bound to something else. So for the purpose of this, I've just rebound this to enter. And if we put in here, say, I don't know, the air sigil, we'll put the lava sigil, the magnetism sigil, water sigil, and then probably the void sigil as well. Maybe, and the elemental affinity down here. So what we could do here, now it's selected as the air sigil, we can now just fly around as usual. Then if you shift and scroll, I'm using the scroll wheel, scroll up or down to change, and it will tell you which one you've actually selected. And here we have the lava sigil, and then obviously we've got the magnetization signal, or magnetism sigil. Now obviously we don't have any items around, but that's how, oops, I need that one. If we throw that on here, there you go, we've now got that. And then actually turn that off again, otherwise it's going to use all my things. Then we've got the water sigil, and then obviously the void sigil. So it all works together. I mean, that's probably something that I would generally have. And then obviously you pressed H or whatever button you've rebound it to enter again in order to take out your sigils. So you could have multiple holding sigils. Say you wanted to make every single sigil at once. You could then have just a hotbar full of holding sigils. Although I think it'd be quite hard to keep track of everything. And then lastly, for tier 3 blood altars, we have the Sigil of the Claw. Now this requires the claw reagent, and that is just 2 flint and this basic cutting fluid. Now we discovered how to make this cutting fluid last episode, which is again in the alchemy table with some plant oil, sugar, coal sand, gunpowder, redstone, and a water bottle. And then the plant oil was made from various vegetables and bone meal inside the alchemy table as well. Now the Sigil of the Claw is actually something interesting. So this is mainly meant to be used within conjunction with the air sigil. So if we get the air sigil out here, let me find it. The way this sigil works is if you right click on a wall, you actually hold onto it. It's a bit finicky, but trust me, it works. If I activate it. There you go. If you activate it, and then I believe hold shift, there you go, you hold shift on the wall, I'm now joined onto the wall, and I can look around, I'm not falling, it's very good. But from here you want to let go really, and then use the air sigil. So that's pretty much the way you, I'm pressing jump here, it doesn't really help. I mean, you can move along the wall if you want to do some climbing. I don't know why. Maybe you want to be, I don't know, Lara Croft, or was it Nathan from Uncharted? I really don't know. I've never played them. But it's best used with the air sigil for when you want to climb around maybe, or get over a mountain. That way it would be very good. It can save your life quite often. Now, I couldn't find actually all the different things of how much life points actually taken with the claw, as this was, I'm pretty sure the claw, as well as the winter's breath, and elasticity, these three were all added in the same patch, so there aren't official numbers for it on the wiki, unfortunately. And then finally, we've got the tier 4 altar. Now, as you can see, only in 1.12 there are actually tier 4 requirements, which is why I wanted to show the weak blood orb for 1.12 in this version of the pack, just so no one was confused. Now, all these are going to require the demonic slate here, as that is the tier 4 slate. And then for the first one, we have the Sigil of Haste. This was going to go, who would guessed it, Haste reagent, and that is just 2 cookies, 1 sugar and 1 stone, or smooth stone as I like to call it. And this requires actually the greater Tartaric Gem or higher, so you have to get right at the very end of the mod in order to actually create this. Now, the Sigil of Haste is probably, as you guessed, it will give you the haste effect. So obviously we can run a little bit faster, we can jump a little bit higher as well, and also I believe it gives you a little bit of mining faster, which is very, very good. Okay, I just had to check, it doesn't give you increased mining speed, but it does give you block step up, which is very good. So I'm not jumping here, this is just automatic. So you've got big jump, lots of running, and also block step up. Now this will actually consume 250 points per 10 seconds. So again, make sure you don't leave it running. Next, we've got the Sigil of the Phantom Bridge. Now this one's actually a really cool one. This is going to require Phantom Bridge reagent, which needs 2 soul sand, 1 stone, 1 obsidian, and will require a common Tartaric Gem or higher. Now, the Sigil of the Phantom Bridge is a very, very cool one. What it does is it's going to basically create, as it says, Phantom Bridges. So if I jump here and right click it, okay, it's not working. There you go. If I go here, now that I'm on a platform, it's because you can't jump to activate it. But if you're on a platform and you start walking around, you create these invisible blocks. They'll start disappearing behind you. So this is very, very cool if you want to do anything. So also, if you want to start building something out somewhere, you can actually right click on these blocks to start building essentially in thin air, which is a very, very cool way of building things. The last thing I want to show with the Phantom Bridge is that if you actually shift, you actually go down a layer. You see here, it takes a few attempts, but it does work. I don't know why, but if you shift, there you go, you can all go all the way down. So it can actually act as if like it's like a little lift. So you have to start on one area, you can walk out, and then if you hold shift, you end up going down layer by layer. So it'd be very good for places like the Nether, especially when you're traversing there. But let's actually unactivate that because that's severely. I wonder how many points I'm actually going to have by the end of this now. So next up is the Sigil of Compression, and the Sigil of Compression is actually really quite interesting and very useful for when you go mining. It requires the compression reagent that is created with the 1 block of iron, 1 block of gold, 1 obsidian and 1 cobblestone. This requires the greater Tartaric Gem and higher. Now the Sigil of Compression, what it will do is it will automatically compress, surprisingly enough, any items that can be. So what do I mean by that? If I pull out a stack of coal here, if I place this down, when I activate it, it will create 1 block. There you go. I've activated it. It's now created 1 block of coal. Basically, whenever this reaches a full stack, it will then create 1 block. So if I got another stack here, it did it again. And all of that got converted because it was higher than the 1 stack. If I get another stack, it will automatically convert. So it wants to try and always keep at least 1 stack of the item you want. This also works the same for redstone as well. Now, I've tried this out with iron ingots and stuff. It doesn't seem to be the case, but let's try it again anyway, just in case. So if I get a stack of iron, it actually does work. Fair enough. I had no idea. Well, I guess it just works for any single item then. That's really, really cool. Let's deactivate that. Now, I cannot find, unfortunately, online how much this actually consumes, as you really want to have this on all the time. So I don't really know how that works, but let's delete the inventory. As we move on to next, we have the Sigil of Ender Severance. Now, you might be able to guess how this actually works. Now, Sigil of Ender Severance requires the demonic slate as well as the severance reagent. That is made with 1 eye of ender, 1 ender pearl and 2 gold, and must require the common gem and higher. Now, the Sigil of Ender Severance, I won't be able to show it really because I have not got any Endermen here, but it's a way of fighting Endermen easily. So if you activate this, it will consume 200 life points every 10 seconds. And what it will do, within an 11 by 11 by 11 area, centered on the player, Endermen will no longer be allowed to teleport. So that's 11 horizontally, along the Z-axis and along the Y-axis. They will not be able to teleport. So you can go up to them, hit them, and they won't disappear. As well as that, you can also, if I turn that off again, you can now fire bows at them or any ranged weapon you may have in your mod pack, and they won't just disappear. So it's a good way of actually fighting enemies a little bit of a distance away. Now, if you have any other sort of teleporting mobs, maybe you have those midi Endermen, I believe it also works on there as well. Now, the last couple of sigils, or the last few sigils, they're going to require a new block which isn't actually in 1.16, and they're called Teleposers. So we're going to go a quick sidestep here about what Teleposers are and how they work. First, to make a Teleposer, you actually need to have a tier 4 altar in order to make this teleposition focus. So even though these won't, although they do require demonic slates, you need the tier 4 altar anyway in order to make the teleposer itself. So it's just 1 ender pearl, 2k life points, and a tier 4 altar to get this teleposition focus. And how this works we'll show in a second, but it's essentially like a GPS coordinate system. As you can at the moment it has nothing on it, but you need one of these anyway to make the teleposer itself, which is obviously 1 teleposition focus, which we just showed how to make, 2 ender pearls, and 6 gold. That'll make the teleposer. Now, quickly to show how the teleposer works, I set this up previously beforehand. It's sort of Blood Magic's way of teleportation. So if we look in this first teleposer, you'll see that we have a coordinate here. Now the coordinate goes to this teleposer over here, and in this one I also have a second focus which has the same coordinates as over here. So how these work is every time you give the block a full power of redstone signaling, it will teleport either a block or an item or a person to the other side. So if I give this full power, it will send it straight over there. And because these two are linked with the same focus, I can actually send it back. As well as this side, I can send it here. But if I took this one out and I said go, it works that way, and I can send it back. But if I sent it that way and then use the other one, it doesn't actually work. So you must have everything linked properly within areas. It's very simple to also link these. If I just did a shift right click, now the pebble, that's to do with a different mod, this now has the coordinates that I've just sent of that place. But for whatever reason, even though I put say this new teleposer in, it doesn't actually send the block over there. But something that can be done is that you can send yourself. Let me put the other one back in. If I right click on here, you see I get sent to the other sigil of the other teleposer. Sorry, very easy stuff, very basic stuff, very easy to make, but obviously you do have to get to tier 4 altar first. So that's essentially these last 3 altars, they all require this teleposer. That was just a very brief tutorial on how the teleposers work, but we may go more into them in a later episode in the series. So, the first one that actually requires the teleposer is the Sigil of Suppression. Now, the Sigil of Suppression again requires the demonic slates, and this time suppression reagent. And the suppression reagent requires 1 teleposer, as I was saying, 1 water bucket, 1 lava bucket, and 1 blaze rod. And you also need a common Tartaric Gem in order to create this. Now, the Sigil of Suppression is probably one of my favourite. And what it does is, when activated, it will consume over time. Yet again, it will consume 400 life points when activated. So on activation, it will cost 400 life points. But then every 10 seconds after that, it will cost 200 life points. So if I do a bit of prep here. So as you can see here, we've got a load of water sources over there. And it'll be very annoying to obviously swim over there. Maybe you want to traverse an ocean. If you activate this, the water just disappears, but it hasn't deleted it. If I walk away, the source blocks actually come back. So I have to get quite far, as this has a very wide range, but as you can see, there they are, they're back. A little bit of lag, but it does work. So if you want to traverse an ocean, this is probably the best way to do it, and this works the exact same with lava as well. But remember, since this is so costly, 200 every 10 seconds, you better either travel quick or have a lot of blood essence in your thing. And then if you turn it off while you're in the water, all of it will actually come back. As you can see, there you go, it just pops back into the world. So next up we have the Teleposition Sigil. This is going to require the Teleposition reagent, and this again needs a Teleposer, 1 glowstone block, 1 redstone block, and 1 gold ingot, and this requires the greater Tartaric Gem and higher. Now the Teleposition Sigil is a little bit interesting. Now the way it works is that it is used in conjunction with a Teleposer. So if you shift right click this, sorry, not shift right click this. If you shift right click on a teleposer, it will teleport you to it. But from there on, you can right click the air and it will instantly teleport you back to that teleposer itself. So you can be no matter how far away you are. So if we fly way, way, way over here, over by the horses. Now we're still linked to over there. If we right click, bosh, instantly here. It's really, really good. Now I don't actually have the statistics here for how many life points it actually takes, as I don't know whether the life points it takes changes for how far away you are from the teleposer itself. But we are now on the very, very last sigil of 1.12 and our last sigil of Blood Magic itself, and that is the Transposition Sigil, which is very interesting. And this requires the Transposition reagent, which is created with a Teleposer, this time a diamond, the only sigil that actually requires diamond, 1 ender pearl, 1 obsidian, and the greater Tartaric Gem or higher. Now the way the Transposition actually works is it's used to store sort of a block. So if I shift right click on this grass block here, there you go, took a little bit of time, I think I was too far away. What's meant to happen is a lightning strike hits the floor, and now this grass block is essentially stored in here. Feel the power of the force, my young apprentice. And then what you can do later on is if you just simply right click with the sigil, it will place that block into existence. Now this is very cool. I think it can actually work with inventories as well. So you see we have everything in here, shift right click, we've picked it up, it's got the Hellfire Forge. If we now right click this over here, we still have the inventory. So it's very, very good for maybe moving large amounts of chests. So say you've got the chest mod, like the iron chest mod, where you have the diamond chest, it's completely full, so you can just shift right click, pick it all up. Or maybe you have the barrels mod, where you have 3 pages of different items, so you can pick that up, just move it. But the cost to this is that every time you pick up a block, it costs 5,000 life points. So it's a big old spend and a big old ask if you want to do it. But to replace it into the world costs nothing. So it's 5,000 every time, and it's only 1 block. So it's not. It's very powerful, but it's a little bit strange to use. It's only really late game. Say you're moving from a starter base to a mega base or something. That's the only times I would really see using it. Now, there is actually one more sigil that is in Blood Magic 1.12, and that is the Sigil of the Whirlwind. But as you can see, it's not actually craftable. It comes up in JEI. See here, if we type in Whirlwind, we've got the Sigil of the Whirlwind. I can actually bring it into the world, I can activate it, and what it actually is meant to do is stop projectiles from actually hitting you, so it'll deflect arrows or any other projectiles that could be fired at you, maybe the gas and stuff, and that is 250 life points per use. But again, it's not craftable in survival mode. I suppose they added this, maybe there was a lot of PvP that was happening in some servers, and maybe someone made it craftable or something. But guys, that is every single sigil inside Blood Magic. This one's going to be a long one, I know it is, but I think it's worth it. But guys, if this tutorial has helped you in any way, shape or form, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I've been seeing so many lovely comments and so many questions as well. Feel free to comment down below any questions that you have. I'll be more than happy to try and figure out what the problem is. I know I have made a mistake or two here or there, but I've tried my best to do as much research in this one to not get any mistakes with all the different crafting recipes between versions. Guys, also we have a Discord as well as a Twitter, which I will link that down below, and I also stream on Twitch every Monday, Thursday and Sunday, and I would love to see you there. We actually just started and released a server for the community, which is dedicated to Twitch subscribers. I'll say that again, Twitch subscribers, so not everyone from YouTube can unfortunately join, but if you come over on Twitch and subscribe, or earn a VIP, which is something new using channel points if you're familiar with Twitch. If not, come by and I'll gladly explain how it all works. And we would love to see maybe some new people on the server. It's going to be fun. It's just started literally as of yesterday. Today is the 26th, so it started on the 25th. And we'd love to see you there. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.